Before we start, hit subscribe if you dare to step inside the walls of secrets most prisons never want you to hear. You'll need it because once you hear this story, you'll never look at a prison meal the same way again. It began on a gray morning inside Ravenshade Correctional Facility, a maximum security prison buried deep in the Appalachian woods. Rain hammered against the metal roofs, and a fog crawled over the yard like a slow-moving ghost. At 7:12 a.m., the kitchen alarms blared. Inmates had stopped eating. Every tray returned untouched, scrambled eggs cold, oatmeal thick as glue, and something far worse beneath it. A guard named Officer Nolan Briggs, a veteran of 20 years, was the first to step into the mess hall. The air was heavy with tension. Dozens of men sat motionless, their eyes not on the food, but on the lifeless body slumped at the end of table 14. The dead man's name was Eddie Splice Moreno, a 37-year-old inmate serving time for armed robbery. His lips were pale blue. His tray still lay in front of him, half-eaten. Within an hour, the coroner confirmed it, poisoning. But what kind of poison? And how did it get past one of the strictest prison kitchens in the country? Detective Rachel Dwyer was called in from the state's Internal Affairs Division. She'd investigated prison corruption for years, but this case hit differently. By the time she arrived, rumors had already spread among the inmates, whispers about bad meat, tainted supplies, and something darker. The kitchen staff denied everything. Supplies were logged, inspected, sealed. Cameras showed no sign of tampering. But when Rachel pulled the kitchen inventory sheets, she noticed a single line scratched out and rewritten. Batch 42, meat shipment delayed. The supplier listed? Harlow Food Services, a private contractor already under investigation for cutting costs by repackaging expired meat. Briggs, the guard who'd found the body, told Rachel something that made her pause. This ain't the first time someone's gotten sick. Last month, 3 guys from Block C went down. Doc called it food allergies. Yeah, right. Rachel's instincts told her this wasn't just negligence, it was intentional. She traced the food supply chain and found a disturbing pattern. Over 6 months, 9 inmates had died in different state prisons, all serviced by the same company. All deaths were labeled natural causes. As Rachel dug deeper, she noticed one more coincidence. Every prison director who signed the contracts with Harlow received unexplained consulting bonuses. But the deeper she went, the more resistance she met. Her superior warned her to drop it. Evidence went missing overnight. Witnesses recanted. Then came a message slipped under her motel door, a torn food label from batch 42, stained with something dark. On the back, scrawled in shaky handwriting, "They're feeding us more than food." Rachel's heart pounded. She raced back to the prison at dawn, demanding to see the cold storage room. But when the heavy steel doors swung open, the smell hit first, sour, metallic, and wrong. Inside, stacked against the wall, were dozens of boxes marked Batch 42, all empty. And on the floor, beneath the flickering light, lay a single tray, untouched, with something carved into the metal. We told you not to look. If you've made it this far, you're not just watching, you're inside this story now. Hit that subscribe button because after this chapter, you'll question everything you've ever eaten and everyone you've ever trusted. Detective Rachel Dwyer didn't sleep that night. Her mind kept replaying the words carved into that tray. We told you not to look. The prison warden, Leon Gates, brushed it off as a prank. But Rachel had seen enough to know when fear was real. By morning, the coroner's new report on Eddie Moreno arrived. Cause of death, cyanide compound, disguised under traces of sodium nitrate, a common preservative used in processed meat. The source? Untraceable. When Rachel requested to question the kitchen staff again, she was told they'd been transferred. All 3 gone overnight. No forwarding records, no explanations. The cameras in the transfer hallway? Malfunctioning. Something was being buried fast. She decided to pay a visit to Harlow Food Services, the supplier behind the mysterious Batch 42. The company's headquarters sat on the edge of town, hidden behind a fence topped with barbed wire and a faded logo that read, "Feeding the Future." A receptionist smiled too quickly when Rachel flashed her badge. "We're fully compliant with all regulations," the woman said. "But the manager isn't in today." Rachel noticed something odd, the scent of bleach hanging thick in the air. Through a small window, she caught a glimpse of two men loading boxes into a black van. Each box carried the same label, Batch 42A. She snapped a quick photo before the guards escorted her out. But when she checked her phone in the car, the image was gone. Deleted. That night, Rachel met with Officer Briggs at a rundown diner off the highway. He looked exhausted, eyes darting at every sound. "You're being watched," he whispered. "They're not just feeding inmates. They're testing on them." She froze. Testing what? Briggs leaned closer. Chemicals. Leftovers from some military project. Cheap way to get rid of it. They lace it in the food, see what it does over time. Most don't die, they just get sick, weak. Easier to control. Rachel's stomach turned. It sounded insane, but it explained the secrecy, the missing files, the money trails. Before she could ask more, Briggs's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, his face draining of color. "They know I'm talking to you." 2 hours later, he was found dead, suicide, according to the report. But Rachel had seen the autopsy photos. His wrists were clean. Now she was officially in danger. Her access to the prison was revoked. Her calls went unanswered. She wasn't supposed to exist in this investigation anymore. But she couldn't stop. Late one night, she broke back into Ravenshade under the cover of fog, using a stolen access card from Briggs's locker. The corridors were silent, cold, the hum of fluorescent lights echoing off the concrete. She made her way to the old storage tunnel beneath the kitchen, a forgotten passage the inmates called the freezer. The walls dripped condensation. And there, behind a stack of decaying boxes, she found something that stopped her heart. A hidden freezer door, sealed shut with chains. She pried it open with a crowbar, the metal screaming against the hinges. Cold air rushed out, and with it, the stench of rot. Inside, instead of food, there were rows of sealed plastic containers, labeled not with batch numbers, but with names. Inmate names. Each container held samples, blood, tissue, organs. Rachel stumbled back, trembling. This wasn't about food anymore. This was about control, experimentation, profit. And as she turned to leave, she heard footsteps, slow, deliberate, echoing down the tunnel. A shadow emerged from the dark. Warden Leon Gates, holding a flashlight. "You should have stayed out of the kitchen, Detective. They say prison food is bad, but what if it's not just bad? What if it's dangerous?" Behind the walls of Ravenshade Correctional Facility, inmates began complaining about meals that made them dizzy, sick, and confused. At first, no one listened. "It's just prison food," the guard said. But then, one inmate collapsed in the dining hall and never woke up. When investigators traced the meals, they found something disturbing. The prison's food supplier, Harlow Food Services, had been secretly mixing experimental preservatives into the meals, untested chemicals meant to keep food cheap and shelf-stable. Over time, those additives were slowly poisoning prisoners. Officials covered it up, labeling every death as natural causes. But one detective refused to stay silent. She uncovered emails, payments, and false contracts linking prison leaders to the company. The truth was horrifying. The inmates weren't just being fed, they were being used. So next time you hear an inmate complain about prison food, remember this. Sometimes the taste isn't what's deadly. It's what's hidden inside. If you're still here, you're the kind of person who wants the truth, no matter how dark it gets. Hit subscribe because what you're about to hear will make you question who's really being served inside those prison walls. The beam of Warden Gates' flashlight cut through the cold air like a knife. Rachel froze, her hand still gripping the edge of the freezer door. "You don't understand what you're looking at," Gates said quietly, stepping closer. "This isn't corruption, Detective. This is survival." Rachel steadied her voice. "Survival? You're experimenting on prisoners." Gates sighed, almost weary. "You think the state cares what happens to them? They gave us permission, unofficially. The company pays the bills, keeps the facility running, and in return, we let them test their additives. It's cheaper than a lab. Rachel's pulse pounded in her ears. You're poisoning people. No, Gates said, his voice low. We're feeding people, just not the way you think. He motioned toward the samples behind her. Each one of those inmates volunteered, or so the paperwork says. Most don't remember signing anything. They think they're just eating lunch. Rachel pulled out her recorder, trying to keep her hands steady. You're admitting to human experimentation. Gates laughed bitterly. You think anyone will listen? Every warden in the state has a piece of this. The governor's brother sits on Harlow's board. You'll vanish before that tape sees daylight. Then came a faint creak, metal shifting behind them. Rachel spun around. One of the storage containers had begun to leak, a thin red line dripping onto the floor. The smell of ammonia filled the air. Gates frowned. That shouldn't. A loud pop interrupted him. The overhead light flickered, then burst. The freezer plunged into darkness. Rachel dove behind a stack of crates as Gates shouted for security. She crawled toward the tunnel exit, clutching the recorder to her chest. Her breath turned white in the freezing air. Somewhere behind her, footsteps echoed. Fast. Getting closer. She burst through the maintenance door, slamming it shut just as the tunnel lights died completely. Her car keys shook in her hand as she ran across the yard toward the staff lot. Sirens wailed from inside the facility. The warden's voice over the intercom, ordering a full lockdown. But she made it to her car. She started the engine, tires screeching across wet gravel as the prison loomed in the rearview mirror like a dying giant. 2 hours later, she pulled into the state office building in Raleigh. Her clothes still smelled of cold metal and rot. She ran the recorder through once. Nothing. Static. Her confession, her evidence gone. Someone had wiped it. Rachel stared at the blinking red light of the recorder until she realized something. Her phone. She'd forgotten it was recording video the whole time in her coat pocket. She replayed it, and there he was, Warden Gates, confessing everything. She uploaded the footage to the network's investigative unit before dawn. By noon, it was everywhere. National headlines. Federal warrants. Harlow Food Services shut down overnight. Gates arrested. The entire prison system thrown into chaos. But the victory was short-lived. 3 days later, the story vanished from every major outlet. Links broken. Archives wiped clean. And when Rachel called the network, no one answered. Her email account, her access, all disabled. That night, she returned home to find a single brown envelope on her doorstep. No return address. Inside was a prison meal tray labeled Batch 43 and a note that read, "You stopped the wrong shipment." Her phone buzzed with a news alert. A riot had broken out at Ravenshade Prison. 12 inmates dead. Cause of death: contaminated food supply. Rachel stared at the screen in silence. She knew the truth now. The inmates weren't just complaining about the food. They were warning everyone about what was coming next. Outside, in the dark, a delivery truck rumbled past her house. On its side, a familiar faded logo, Harlow Food Services, feeding the future. If you think this story was intense, you're not ready for the next one. Hit subscribe, because the truth only gets darker from here.